We're once again heading back to Pandora, and this time we're introduced to a new Na'vi villain named Varang. Only waiting 3 years for the next James Cameron spectacle actually feels a little strange, but we're here, so let's dive in and discuss Avatar: Fire and Ash. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast, and today we're here to talk about Avatar: Fire and Ash, the third Avatar movie, which feels weird to say because it took so long to get the second one. It's weird that we've got the third one just a couple of years later, but here we are. So this is obviously going to start spoiler free. We'll give you a warning before we go into the spoilers, and of course if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch if you do, and you can support everything over at Patreon or via YouTube membership and get some bonuses, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. And while I say we'll start spoiler free, it's always a bit weird with a sequel because you've got previous movies, and you're sort of saying where we're starting off in this movie, kinda, so there may be some late spoilers for the previous ones up front. We may not be able to deal with that, but for this one, we'll give you severe warning before we go into any spoilers. So, yeah, so this is the third of the movies. It is possibly third of 5, depending on how well this one does. And it is 3 hours and 17 minutes, just eking out what the second one's runtime was. So, needless to say, when I got out today, I really needed to pee at the end of the movie.
I was actually, I'm usually very bad about that. I'm very bad of like, especially it's like it only takes like a 2-hour long movie for me to be like, oh god, I'm gonna explode, I'm gonna die, and that's usually because I go in with like an extra large soda, and that's an American extra large, so you know, the size of a young child. But this time I had restraint. I only ordered a medium, and when I left, I was able to drive the whole way home before I ended up needing to go.
I actually intentionally I almost never get a drink when I'm at the movies because I don't want to make myself need to pee more than what will naturally already happen based on what I've already had today. But this was such a long movie that it didn't matter that I hadn't had anything for like an hour before the movie. By the end of the movie, it's just enough time had passed. It was time to pee. Like the body was just ready to go. So,
that makes sense. I mean, it also doesn't help that this movie is carrying over from The Way of Water, like 80% water.
There's a lot of water.
There's a lot of it.
There's a lot of pouring, there's a lot of swishing and ripples and all sorts, waves, all the things you can say. So, yeah, obviously this is building right after the last one, which I guess is the first big difference, is that the second movie, you know, there was kind of like a little recap of sorts, but it was basically like a time jump of about 10 to 15 years, give or take. And it was like, oh, so much time has passed, like this relationship between Jake and Neytiri's evolved over this time. They've got a family, they don't just have one kid, they got 4 kids, asterisks, so we've got all that going on. Whereas this one's a lot more like, no, Way of Water just happened. Like, it happened like 2 days ago, and we're just kind of picking up from here, and like there's a lot of fallout that's going to naturally just happen immediately from this. Which, interestingly, now I did not know this before I watched it, I just found this out actually after the fact, and I remember actually at one point there had been talk of there been 4 Avatar movies, back in the early days of we're making sequels, Cameron wants to do a bunch of things, and then at some point it became 5. Now, it's actually the second script was the one that was extended into 2 movies, into 2 and 3. That's where it became 5 instead of 4. Was the second one became 2 and 3. So 4 and 5 in theory are still the 4 and 5 that he always roughly had laid out, you know, back in the day. Whereas this one, and I guess in a weird way you can feel it because there is no time skip. It is just kind of straight into the fallout of what happened in the last movie. Yeah, I mean, to be clear on one thing, you said it's like 2 days later. Apparently, official sources say 3 weeks. So, you know what I mean.
Very close.
Yeah, very close. They're still mourning, you know, stuff that happened at the end of the last movie. They're like the bad guys are sort of dripping and saying, okay, what's our next plan? Like, it's all very much the next thing, you know.
And that's kind of what I was feeling when I got into the beginning of this movie. Is it feels like the authorial intent is that you kind of watch this as a double feature. Like, if the last time you saw Way of Water was in 2022, you would be much better off rewatching it again and then going to see this.
Although, having said, given the time gap between the first Avatar and the second, 3 years is a double feature in Avatar timeline.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think it does a good job of kind of recapping the major beats at the start, through a bit of narration and just kind of setting things up, so you're not too lost if you have forgotten a lot of the second one.
Yeah, I agree. I think plot-wise, it does a good job of reminding you everything that's going on both sides, antagonist, protagonist. I think the biggest issue I have is that it still is carrying over this ensemble cast.
Yes.
And I think there are several characters that fall through the gaps of, if you don't remember the last movie, good luck. You just kind of got to pick it up by context clues.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because not everyone can get the time, not everyone's a main character, but yeah, so I mean, I don't want to say too much about the plot here until we get to spoilers. I'll just say that yes, there is a new tribe, the Ash people, with a sort of new villain named Varang, who's introduced. You'll see her in all the posters and stuff. If you've seen any trailers, you've definitely seen her face, so that's kind of the big thing that's added here. But other than that, even the trailers, because I got the trailer a bunch of times over the past couple of months when I was going to the movies. The trailer didn't really give much plot away. There was maybe one little brief thing teased that I was expecting when I started watching the movie, but other than that, the trailers were mostly, here's a couple of quick shots of some faces, a couple of quick shots of action, and then something kind of vaguely like, oh, Sullies will stand together, we'll get through this, but with no indication of what the actual cause of the events are or anything like that.
It's basically a Fast and Furious trailer. You don't know what's happening, but family's what's important.
Yes. So I mean, I guess we'll just get into the impressions in a minute. Although probably just before we do that, actually, because obviously last time an Avatar movie came out, you weren't the co-host of this show. Now you have, I think, talked about them both as homework, but it might be worth just sort of giving a quick recap of your feelings on the first two just before we get into this one.
Yeah, so I saw the first one in the intended way, in theaters, with the 3D glasses, did the whole shebang. I liked it. I wasn't absolutely head over heels over it. It was, I thought, a good movie. I think this was at a period where I was a lot less accepting as a general audience member of that super extended runtime. So I was feeling a bit antsy as the movie was getting wrapped up and all that. But no, I still think it was a decent movie. And then I didn't actually see Way of Water until I watched it for homework on this show. And so I watched it just on my TV, home system, nothing major about that. And obviously I was a lot more willing at that point to sit through longer runtimes. I do remember liking it. I think it was very well made. Obviously, the big thing with these movies is the special effects, the way that they are pushing the entire industry forward by leaps and bounds. Avatar did a great job with that. Way of Water took it to 11. I think that it's fantastic in the way that it was covering that, and I recognize that point. I think the only thing that I was saying, maybe not negatively, but I was just remarking upon with Way of Water, is that it felt like we were building up to this larger thing. It felt like there was all these dangling plot threads that were meant to pick up with the future storyline, the next movies down the way, whether that be just 3 or 3, 4, and 5. So it did feel like there was a lot still left open there, but it was still a satisfying story on its own. But again, like if I were to go to Walt Disney World, Walt Disneyland, whatever has that Pandora theme park or whatever like that, I'm the kind of guy who I'd check it out, but the moment I see something longer than like an hour wait time, I'm balking. I do not care that much about it.
That's a weird metric. I've never thought of my fandom of something about how long I'd be willing to wait in a line at a theme park for it.
I feel like that's the most accurate way.
I'm not a theme park person, I guess. I don't think about it. Yeah, I mean, I like the first Avatar. It tends to get a lot of hate online. And the plot is fairly straightforward, but, I think the action was very good. And at the time, we were so inundated with Michael Bay movies, with other types of things, that it was kind of a breath of fresh air. I think Way of Water is an excellent film. I think Way of Water does a lot of great stuff with introducing the kid characters, and they were really fleshed out. It looked even more spectacular. And I loved how earnest it was. And in an era where everything's so quippy and, we can't take anything seriously, it's like, no, it's taking its story seriously. It's really committing to all the things that it's doing and all the rest of it, and thought it was an improvement on the first one. Which leads us to Avatar Fire and Ash. So, David, what did you think of the new Avatar?
So I'm going to start with its comparison to just cinema as a whole instead of just the Avatar movies.
Okay,
cinema as a whole. Yeah, cinema as a whole, it's great. It's a fantastically made movie. It does a great job. It carries over pretty much the same sort of stuff from Way of Water. It takes all of that character development that they did in the second one and just fully forces it into this larger plot. It allows these characters to develop, you know, into like the first part of it, The Way of Water, was more so of getting to know the characters and then, you know, a tiny little change, a tiny little like, okay, a little growth here at the end once we get it all set up. Now that we've done the legwork in Way of Water, we're allowed to have these much larger character arcs and we allow these much bigger changes in the characters. And I think they do a great job of having pretty much every character go through something that shows a deep understanding of like this world and the inter-character relations and all that sort of stuff. It made one honestly, I thought Spider in the last movie, who's the human guy who lives with the Na'vi, I thought he was kind of, I don't want to say underutilized, but he was not the most interesting character for me. I think this movie does a great job of just flipping that on its head and making him a much, much better character. In terms of comparison to the Avatar movie, specifically Way of Water, because obviously this is kind of a 1-2-parter. This is, like I said, there were dangling plot threads. This is more or less, let's take all of those and run with them. I think that this one is good. This one is probably up there with Way of Water in terms of, like I said, the storylines are all good and all that. My biggest critique, though, is that I felt like throughout the movie, especially second and third acts, I felt a lot of repeating plot beats from both Avatar and Way of Water. It felt like there were very similar things that just kept happening. Like, what happens with the kids? What happens with Spider? How are these, like, all the Na'vi reacting to the sky people? The whale creatures, I forget their alien name, but whatever they're called, like, how are they integrated into the plot? All of that stuff is expanded upon in this movie, but it still follows a very similar plot beats where I felt like by a certain point, did we not already do this? I feel like we already did this in Way of Water for certain things. So it's a little bit of a letdown in that aspect, that I didn't feel like we were just doing big, bold new things collectively, but it still is a solidly made movie. It still is fantastic for what it is. So if you like the Avatar universe, I doubt this one's going to be the one that's like, yeah, no, not for me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'd seen a couple of opinions before I went in to see it. Nothing spoiled or anything. I didn't know anything that was going to happen, but I did see the critique that it was just a retread of the last movie. It was just like he'd remade the same movie again. So I kind of went in with like, okay, I'm going to look for this now that I've heard that, and I'm going to be thinking about it as I watch it. And I think in the first act especially, I was like, what the hell are these people talking about? This is so different. There's nothing like it's everything's fallout from the last one. It's introducing new stuff, and I think, to be honest, even Act 2 I think is mostly new interesting stuff, and it's still so injected with all these new elements that nothing. Yeah, it felt like in some ways we're doing kind of new versions of some of the same plot beats, but they're kind of like, you know, the whole point is to provoke them further down, you know, whatever path the characters are going on. The only part that I would kind of like maybe agree with that critique, which is to say that I don't agree with the overall critique, but just like see where the feelings are coming from, is that I do think the big third act, like final set piece, is in a very similar place, a very similar kind of location, and there's different things happening to an extent, but it's so samey to what the third act of Way of Water was, in terms of just like, you know, I'll just say it's a fight that takes place around the water and there's on ships and things like that.
Shock.
Right? But like in the second movie, that felt so refreshing because it was nothing like that was in the first one. Here, even though it's bigger and there's more people involved, there's more Na'vi, there's more humans, there's more fish, like there's more everything. It still just kind of felt like it was turned up from what was in the last one. And I do generally wonder, like I would be fascinated to know if this is the biggest casualty of this originally being one big movie split in two. And what I mean by that is, it's not that I think, and the weird thing is I don't think it's this part that changed. I think what changed when they split it into two is that the thing that's the third act of Avatar: Way of Water, they realized that was now the end of a movie, so they made it bigger and more like a big, like, end of movie exciting set piece, like, you know, extended with all those things that happened in it. But the problem is that instead of feeling like the middle part of a story like it would have done originally, it now feels like it maybe borrowed a bit too much from what was going to be in the ending of this one. Oh, yeah. So as a result, you're feeling some sameness as it's happening throughout.
I feel like there is, not for the whole movie, but there, for Spider's plot specifically, there's a point where you can cut it in Way of Water and cut it in Fire and Ash and merge the two ends together, and it would flow seamlessly. Like, it would absolutely just be the exact same plot.
I don't know if I agree with that.
All right, I mean, there's one thing that's spoilery
there's a pretty major thing, that happens.
It's a little spoilery. I can't change that, but like beyond that, it's he's put into very similar places multiple times. Yeah,
but you're ignoring a big major change that completely differs the dynamic of everything that's happening with him.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the original script, though, I feel like that was shuffled around differently, but like it still is the same sort of stuff there.
Sure, but I think, I don't know. I feel like some people love to have a gotcha, especially for some reason with these Avatar movies, but they love to shit on them and like, oh, see this and this. Like, they love a gotcha. And I feel like some people are making really blanket statements that don't actually make a whole lot of sense with it, but they will it into existence because they really want to shit on them. And it's not like this is not James Cameron's best work. It's far from his best work, right? This dude made the Terminator. He made Aliens, right? He made The Abyss, right? It's better than Titanic. I'm just going to say that. But that's neither here nor there. But you know, like, it feels like people, in general, there's like this weird kind of like, oh, it's disappointing that this is what he's doing compared to everything else. And I kind of, like, in a small way, I kind of agree with that, because like, I kind of wish he was doing more varied stuff. And you know, it's kind of weird to think that this is all he's ever really making for the rest of his career, potentially. He does have that Hiroshima movie that he's maybe lining up to do next before he goes back to Avatar. But
sorry, interrupting just for a second. I got an ad before this for, apparently James Cameron is doing a concert film for Billie Eilish, where he's also using the 3D technology to record the whole thing. And I was like, is this going to be the one we have to review, Pete? Is this, we got to get the whole James Cameron filmography?
No. Don't worry about that. That sounds like something he's doing for a bit of fun at the weekend. That doesn't sound like a real project.
Probably.
But I don't know, it's so weird, like, the way people like fixate on tearing these particular movies apart. And there's critiques to be had. Like, I know people hate Spider. Like, the internet absolutely hates Spider as a character, including after this one. And they, and I hear a lot of complaints about his acting not being great. And to be fair, I kind of agree his acting's not that great. I think conceptually, though, because in this movie, he kind of acts as a MacGuffin in a lot of ways. And I think in that role, he serves it quite well. But that's a whole other, thing to get into. But
yeah, no, I agree. And I also do have a couple like small writing things, but it also, I think in the hands of a much more capable actor, it could have worked. But it's weird because so much of this movie is, or not even the movie, so much of the story is this like very basic monomyth sort of thing. It feels very timeless. It feels very much of like, this could be told throughout any culture or anything, whatever like that. But some of Spider's dialogue is like, that's 2020s. Like, that's very specifically this specific era of him, like a teenager talking. And I don't know, it comes across as a little weird sometimes.
Yeah, that said, there is one moment where Quaritch in this movie, I won't give the context away because there is a reason why he's maybe speaking weirder than he normally does, but he does say that's not cool at one point. I'm like, that doesn't sound like Quaritch. That sounds like his son speaking. That's weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's critiques to be had, but I think what's so weird to me, it's just, or that's not even weird. What's good to me about these movies is that there's just such a craft behind them. Like, Cameron, you can tell, is a very classical director from a previous era who like knows how to pace movies. So despite the fact that it's 3 hours and 17 minutes, it's not poorly paced. Like, it moves in a nice clip. If I have a critique maybe about like the length, it's maybe less to do with pacing and more just to do with, well, there's so many characters doing stuff that sometimes some will just fade away for like 30 minutes before they pop back up again. And I do think that's a legitimate thing to maybe say. And sometimes it's very prominent characters who have disappeared for 30, 40 minutes before they come back. And, you know, so I think that's a fair critique to throw at it. But...
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, though, because I agree that it's weird when they fade away for that long. Maybe this is an issue where it's too much of both, but when they fade away for that long, every once in a while, then they'll have a sequence where they're cutting between the two different plot lines. Like, usually when action or something is happening, they're cutting between, oh, what's Jake Sully doing? And then, like, what's his son doing on the other side of the planet? And then it feels weird there because it's like, oh, well, we didn't have the sun for like 30 to 40 minutes. And now all of a sudden we're just like boom, 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 cutting in between here. So it's maybe it's just a can't have it both ways sort of thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine this was like probably to fix some other pacing issues where they originally had it structured a little bit differently, but they get into the edit room and they're like, this isn't quite working because it feels like we're drawing this part out by cutting to this thing too often. So maybe we want to just focus on one, switch to the other, but then you have this thing where someone's been gone for 25 minutes in the movie. So there's a bit of a balancing act that's being played there, I guess, and maybe what we're getting is the best of the choices they had once they'd already done all the capturing, and they're already obviously working on the effects and everything else. Right. Yeah. I
mean, it's I'm not upset with the movie. I left this feeling good. I left this thinking like, okay, that was a very well-made movie, well done. I think viewing Way of Water and this together does feel like a complete story. It doesn't feel like, you know, they were made for the sake of just having a part 1, part 2, as you're saying, that like the script was expanded or anything like that. It feels like everything that was here for a reason. It wasn't just there to pad itself out. So and I'm down with it. It just has a couple flaws here and there.
Yeah, no, it has some flaws. And I think, given the fact that them combined are 6 hours, now maybe, if you wrote them as one big movie, you would condense some things down and maybe cut an hour out. Hour and a half, maybe even, but even then, that's still 4.5 hours of a movie. Like, that's still a lot.
I feel like, because obviously you have a couple of the kids here. I don't want to spoil too much of Way of Water by saying how many kids, but you have a couple of the kids here.
I feel like that already did the spoiler, but all right, go on.
I feel like each of the main kids here has their own plot. If this were one movie, one of those plots has to just go. Like, I don't see all 3 of those being a thing in a smaller version.
I mean, the youngest one doesn't really have that much of her own plot.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 3 kids, including Spider, is one of those
Spider,
kids.
Okay, right, sure.
Yeah.
No, I think they'd all be there, but I think that there's some elements of, like, you know, one of the kids' plots. Like, I think the son's plot, Loak's plot, I think almost all of his plot from both would still be in. I think Kiri's plot, I think some of the things from both films would be merged into like one thing. Like, I don't know if you would need to have her having it. Kind of feels like she has some moments in the last one, and then she has like sort of bigger versions or more grand versions of it in this one. I think if it was one big movie, you just sort of build up to one moment with her rather than, you know, the way it's played out over the two. Which, you know, so I think if I was to sum up my feelings is that I had a really good time and I was really liking the first like 2/3 of the movie a lot. Like, I was kind of probably, I would say, loving it even, because it was doing a lot of interesting things. I was loving the new directions it was taking and the way it was challenging certain things. I think the weakest part is the third act, though, and not because it's bad. Far from it. It was the most disappointing part because it felt just too similar to the end of Way of Water, which may be something that fades over time. This might be like a first viewing only disappointment, because over time when I'm rewatching the movies, like, I already know where it's going and coming, so I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, I'm disappointed there's not something different or fresh here in the last bit.
I currently on the schedule that I've seen is that Avatar 4, assuming it goes through and this movie makes $1 billion, which Avatar 4 is on the docket for 2029. I imagine I'm probably going to try to sit down and do a full rewatch of all 3 before I go into that. I'm going to have that, which is going to be, I'm assuming I'll have this one faded in my memory. Having those two back to back, almost essentially fresh, I really want to see how it relates to each other, how much it feels like that close together, it really comes off as the same or different.
Yes, I believe they've shot some of Avatar 4.
Okay.
I think to do with a time jump, they shot some stuff with the younger characters when they were shooting the 2 and 3, and then they'll obviously do the rest if they get to do it. The quote from Cameron is that for Avatar 4 and 5 to be greenlit, this needs to be in the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time. Now, what does that actually mean in terms of money? It means about $1.4 billion, I think. Which, to be fair, the last one made $2 billion, so it's not actually that absurd an amount to get to in a lot of ways. But
it could be the Star Wars problem as well, where Force Awakens makes God knows how much money because there was such a big gap there, and then the next one comes out, it's like, eh.
That's the thing, though. There'll be another, not as big as 1 to 2, but there's going to be another reasonable gap after this one if we do get 4, because they've not, like I say, they've shot a bit of 4, but they still need to go and make it all, and they're going to do 4 and 5 as like they did 2 and 3 as one big production, presumably. So we're talking, 2029 honestly has been a little optimistic, frankly.
Oh, no. The moment that date was put on there, I'm like, okay, what was the original date for 2?
Oh, like 2012 or some shit like that.
Exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to be somewhere in my mid-50s by the time this comes out, but whatever.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't think it'll be as big as the gap from 1 to 2, assuming we're getting 4 and 5. But I do think it'll be, like 2029 is a best case scenario, and to be honest, I would put my bets on like 2031 is where my expectations actually lie. But hey, so that's my big thing. This is the third act. The third act feels too samey to the third act of the last one. That's the biggest critique I would lavish upon it. I know some people hate Spider and think he can't act. I don't think he's a great actor, but I think he fills his role in the movie well enough. I think Cameron, for me, typically is good at handling all of his actors, even the ones that aren't that good. And I think that's something that has been true of a lot of his movies, actually.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I honestly, that was me thinking back to Avatar 1. Don't get me wrong. He's good. He's fine in what he does, but I felt like Sam Worthington as Jake was very weak comparatively to everyone else. But nowadays, I mean, we're talking a decade later, but he's owned the character. He's made him his own thing, and it really does work.
Helps that he's had no other meaningful roles in the last several years. He's all his efforts went into Jake Sully, as the Na'vi pronounce it.
I mean, you could argue that, or you could argue the counterpoint where he hasn't had the chance to practice in the meantime. Like, there's nothing else he could have been doing, and yet he's still making it work.
Yeah, he's definitely a case of he was perfectly adequate in the first Avatar and no more. But the others around him are all better in various ways. So yeah, it's the whole thing. The movie still looks great, obviously. We do get a lot of the same locations, but we do get some new stuff. There's big volcanoes, a lot more flying stuff, so on and so on. So lots to talk about there.
Yeah, there's obviously, we talked, or you and Tara talked, but the idea of the technological leap from 1 to 2.
Yes.
The idea of driving the industry forward with all the water physics and all this crazy stuff like that. There's not as big of a leap here, but I do still feel like it is an improvement over the last one. I do still think there are tiny little things that they've done that just add that little bit of extra flair to it.
I don't even think I was looking for it. There's maybe 1 or 2 small things where when, they're showing off by having that happen on camera. There was 1 or 2. I can say this without spoilers. There's a scene where Neytiri's washing something off her face, and I thought, this is just showing off. You've got the makeup or whatever coming off in the water. I'm like, all right, Weta or whoever's doing this effect.
No, yeah, it's Weta. The other part of that is obviously the name of the movie is Fire and Ash, and I think everyone kind of assumed that with the name of that we were going to get better fire and smoke physics. We were going to get something super impressive fire and smoke. I don't think I noticed anything for the fire. I did notice that there were several scenes where there was just an overall haze, a smoky effect. Yeah. And from what I know of special effects, that's actually really hard to pull off because you essentially do need depth to say it gets smokier as you go farther back.
I mean, I've complained numerous times about bad overlaid smoke or mist in other movies. To be fair, I think the difference with water though is that like water was something that everyone was trying to crack for a long time. Like water was this big missing link. Whereas fire, there's relatively decent, convincing fake fire in a lot of movies. You know, some are still crap, but like if they've got the money and the talent for it, then the technology's already been there to do decent fire, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm just saying that I think that might be where a little bit of technology went to, a little bit of pushing that forward, because it did feel impressive when they did it. It did feel like they were doing something there, but it's nowhere near as interesting as the look at these completely made up people interacting with real water.
Yeah. Also, I'll just say this before we get into spoilers, is that, even just before when he started promoting the last one, Cameron was saying things like Avatar 4's the holy shit one, where he just goes nuts. And I'm like, and I was thinking about it as this movie was ending, I was like, yeah, that was good, but I want the nuts one. Let's better make the money, because I really want to see the nuts one, especially since we're meant to be like, visiting Earth at some point in like one of these future movies. I'm like, yeah, give it to me. Yeah, give me Natiri like soaring through the skies of Earth.
I don't want to spoil what it is, so I'll be very vague about it. But there's a moment in this movie where it feels like he goes full like weird side of Kubrick. And I was like, is this the hint? Is this where we're going to go nuts with it? Is this how we're going to get absolutely insane in the future?
I have thoughts on exactly the moment you're referring to, but I'll be saving that for a bit. So I think we'll give the spoiler warning so we can get into it here.
Sure.
So spoilers for Avatar Fire and Ash, you have been warned. So the older brother died at the end of the last movie. That was the big traumatic incident, and I actually really like that this movie opens with everyone still feeling the effects of that. Natiri's like lost, she's heartbroken, and her bow's been broken, and it's been left at the bottom of the water. Loak does go and get that, whilst him and Jake are like grabbing whatever guns they can find, which even that leads to conflict with the other Na'vi, because they're like, hey, we don't want to use these devil weapons. Touching those is poison. We've got our bows and arrows, and we've got Awa to protect us. And Jake's like, look, I love Awa as much as the next Na'vi, but like they're going to come back with more ships and more guns and explosives. We need to fire.
Have you not watched the last two movies, guys? We know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, and that was the other thing. I was like, so I assumed the guy just died, but the guy who lost the arm last movie is back, just with a robotic arm. So he's still trying to kill the whales, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait till you get killed. You're such a hateless douchebag.
I mean, you're right. And like, yes, we're all just sitting there waiting for it the entire time. But at the same time, like, it takes so long in the movie to get him reintroduced again. This is, out of all the characters and stuff that I was saying before, like some of them don't get that reminder, that little thing in the movie to say, here's who this character is and their relations. The whale hunting people get it the worst. There is like nothing to remind you that this was happening until they just show up and say, yeah, we were doing that and we're going to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a problem necessarily, because you can't give everyone that kind of reintroduction. And at the very least, because he's got the robotic arm, he's instantly, like, you can see him like immediately now. Like, he sticks out. He's got this big visual represent. What surprised me more was Giovanni Ribisi just kind of popping up again. Like, oh, you're back. I didn't realize you were still in Pandora, but here you are.
What else is he gonna do? Of course he's still here.
Yeah, so he's back. But yeah, so no, everyone at the start is still very sad about the loss of the son and struggling. And when they do confront Sully about using these guns, like the Kate Winslet's character starts yelling at him, hey, like, your wife needs you. She's heartbroken right now, and you're like, collecting guns and ready to fight a war. Like, go and be with her, and it leads to some, like, honestly, the more human moments, pardon the expression, of this movie are kind of the big bits for me, the more impactful and memorable things. Whether it's like Sully and Natiri fighting about something and having an argument, whether it's Sully and his son having an argument. Obviously, there's a couple of big scenes with Spider later on that and I literally saw someone who was sitting near me gasping at one point and covering their mouth, worried about what may happen with Spider in a very pivotal scene towards the end of Act 2.
I had that same, like, I wouldn't say I was gasping, but I had a similar concern. There's a moment, I'd say early Act 2, with Loak, where I was like, are they gonna have, like,
yeah.
the fact that they had the balls to set it up, I didn't think they'd pay it off, but like I was worried.
Yeah, honestly, going through this in order is going to be quite tough. So I think for some of the characters, it may just make sense to focus on what their story is, at least for the first like half of the movie or so.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
Because Loak, yeah, like he puts a gun to his chin and he's ready to do it. He's ready to go, and he decides not to. But he like the fact that they even give us that visual of him holding the gun up to his face is like, oh shit, this got dark.
Yeah, no, his entire thing is his grief comes in the form that he feels somewhat responsible for his brother's death because, you know, he abandoned his post or whatever. I can't remember the exact plot beats, but through the course of this movie, they basically say it's because he didn't obey orders that his brother was forced to come in and ended up being shot. So he's simultaneously doing that. And then over the course of the movie, it's kind of this battle between him and his father, Jake, of Jake getting over that himself because Jake kind of sees it a similar way. And then also Loak coming into his own of being the eldest son, being able to act as the responsible wingman who's doing the best for his family and his tribe.
Yeah, I mean, the arc for him and his dad over the course of the movie is like him wanting to fight by his dad's side, his dad saying, no, not a chance, you're young and immature and you don't follow orders. But by the end, obviously, being put in a position where he does have to trust his son to like actually be there for him and do all that. So, and you know, that I think that's a solid arc. I think Loak was like maybe the standout character in many ways, A Way of Water. I think he really stole the show in that one. Down to the fact that, you know, he's got a love interest here with you know, the other daughter character. You know, I think his stuff is really good here, and he has a lot of great scenes. But he is one that suffers a little bit because after that whole sequence we're talking about with the gun, and then obviously the whale stuff is happening, and his like friend whale, you know, the one, the heroic one from the last movie, when
the outcast.
when he's like properly like outcast, where they tell him to get lost, like he's not allowed to be anywhere near here. He goes looking after him, and you know his you know quote unquote girlfriend chases after him with her brothers. And like once they go and do that, they do mostly leave the movie for like 40 minutes. It's like, you know, we get a little check-in once or twice, but for the most part they're just missing whilst we're doing Jake stuff.
Yeah, that's the bit, is they're just like, oh no, what happened to my son? We have to go find him, but they're busy with other stuff in their plots. And then the movie goes off and follows their plots, and then like all of a sudden in the middle of like some other scene going on, we just hard cut to him out in the ocean. I'm like, oh, that's right, he has a son who's out looking for a whale. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, so that's going on with him, and that's all fine. Spider's obviously got a lot of plot in this movie. The big thing with him is that he is living with them now. However, because he needs a breather to breathe, because he can't breathe the air on Pandora, it's instantly causing trouble, where he's literally sleeping one night and his gas mask is like starts beeping, it's out of power, out of air, whatever. Because they talk a lot about battery packs, so I think its power is like a big part of it. But basically they all wake up and start panicking, like, oh, where's the second mask? Where's the backup mask? Where is it? And they get it eventually, but this is what prompts like Jake and Neytiri seemingly having a decision between themselves that he kind of needs to go, if not back to like the human city that's being built, at least with like Norm and the other humans that sort of are pally with the Na'vi. Like he has to go live with them because they have some, you know, they have some small trailers with oxygen. He can't live in a mask 24/7.
Yeah, I remember that from Way of Water, right? Like I'm not making up that memory where they have him go into that station and he breathes the air in there rather than being in that mask.
I mean, technically, I think that happens. I don't think it's like a big plot point, though. I think it's just...
No, but I'm just saying, that was the previous thing. That was what it was before. But now we're set up, like you said, with this mask situation. Yeah. And all they're doing is basically saying, like, look, we tried it. This isn't working. We gotta send him back. And the whole family's like, we hate you, Dad. He's our brother. We can't send him back. And then they make a whole thing of saying, like, all right. To kick off the plot, we'll go with him.
Yes.
And we'll all say goodbye when we get there.
Yeah, we'll make a little family trip out of it. We'll all bond. We'll go with these marching traders who like have these like hot air balloon type things with jellyfish flying them at the front. That's the best description I can give you, honestly.
Look, we had the tree Na'vi, we had the water Na'vi. In this movie, we get the fire Na'vi. This is just a little glimpse at the air Na'vi. This is who they are.
The navigators. navigators.
Oh, that went over my head. If it was written down.
Yeah.
See, all of these are actually scripted, so Pete's reading the script right now, but
I have never pre-planned a word of what I say on this show.
I can tell.
Yeah, but it's a bit of an adventure. They're bonding, all the rest of it, and then the plot kind of really kicks in when because they briefly mention there's a threat of raiders, right? Because they are a traveling supply of goods, and there is this villainous people, the Ash people, who have a lot of red paint and stuff. They live near a volcano, and they're led by Varang, who is kind of our new main. Well, obviously, Core is just still kind of the main villain, but she is now co-main villain, if you want.
Yeah, she's the antagonist. Obviously, we get all the antagonists before this are humans. This is the showing that not all the Na'vi are super cool. There are bad Na'vi.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we get this really cool sequence, and this is, for everything I said about the third act feeling a bit samey with the end of Way of Water, I think all the action sequences that take place before that are all really cool and unique and feel different to anything we've had. And because even though we've had, the end of the first movie had a big battle in the sky, this feels very different to that because it's these like Na'vi villains that are coming in and throwing fire bombs. One of them just agrees to be like a Na'vi Molotov cocktail. She just sets him on fire and then he just dives into the airship.
I was getting such Mad Max Fury Road vibes
yes,
from this.
yes.
It's the murder death cult. It's absolutely, she's a Morton Joe, and these are, I'm forgetting the name of the followers.
The War Boys.
War Boys, yeah, they're all her War Boys.
Yeah, she's like, what a glorious day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So yeah, we have this big sequence, and the kids are having to run about. Loak's trying to defend his siblings. There's actually a brief moment where he runs away from them to get his gun or his communicator, and Spider has to try and fight off like an evil Na'vi on his own, but obviously he's like a third of the size, so the poor guy is like trying to like hold his own, and it's just by luck someone's able to step in before he gets killed, but it really emphasized the difference between him and a Na'vi in that scene.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Also, as long as we were just kind of talking about Spider's plot a little bit, it does intersect with Neytiri's plot because her grief basically comes in the form of she absolutely hates humans with a newfound burning rage. And so Spider is essentially just this representation of, you're responsible for the death of my son as a species.
Well, since you brought that up, one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is when she's talking about how much she hates the humans, the sky people, the pink-skinned people, as she calls them.
Yes.
She's going on and she's hating them and blah blah blah, and Jake kinda like he's kind of like most of the time when she brings this sort of stuff up, he'll never be one of us, he should be with his own kind. In the back of my head, even in the last movie when she said something like that in a more kind of casual way where it wasn't that serious yet, I was thinking, did you remember that you married someone who used to be a human? It feels like you're being oddly racist towards someone who is the race of the person you kind of married. And I was really happy there was a confrontational scene in this where Jake kind of throws down and says, hey, you married one of them, remember? I used to be that. You put your trust on a sky person before. Why can't you do it again? But then I think the thing that really elevated the scene is when he said, hey, because it's right after a scene where when they're talking about, like, I think ostracizing the whale character.
Yeah.
Loak tries to speak up and he gets really pissed that no one else is speaking up with them. And like Neytiri looks like mortified that he's breaking all the Na'vi rules by speaking out and so on. So right after that, they're having this fight about her hating humans, and Jake kind of points out, "Oh, is this do you feel ashamed every time one of your children doesn't fit in because you blame the fact that they've got human? For me, they've got their alien hands because they've got the 4 fingers instead of the 3," and she just looks like disturbed and like emotional, and it really hit. It felt like he really hit the nail on the head of like some kind of like just deep-seated problem she has that she's not really processed with how she views herself and her family and her kids, and I think it's ultimately what leads to her big decision later on, the big scene with Spider later on.
Yeah, no, I really like that because, again, like I said, we set up all this stuff in Way of Water, and I mean for her character, the original Avatar as well, but this is what allows for these bigger changes, these much more in-depth things where we get to sit here and say, we've established a spectrum here. We've established this idea of, okay, you don't like humans as humans. You like Na'vi as Na'vi. We have Jake Sully, who is essentially as Na'vi as you can get while still technically being human here. And then on the opposite side, you have Spider, who is doing all the Na'vi stuff, but he is a human. And like, where is her line here? And it basically does come down to this essentially just completely irrational, racist kind of thing where it's like, it doesn't have to make sense, but just these aspects of it are things that as she's reminded of it, like, yeah, it ticks something inside of her. It's something that's like, no, I don't know how to square this, and it's tearing her apart.
Yeah, because you've got Loak who keeps speaking out and kind of is becoming more of an outcast because he's challenging the status quo, which I think we as the audience kind of root for, because, you know, I think most audiences when we're watching a movie, we always want to see the status quo challenged. It's usually the good thing to see it challenged. So you've got him doing that, which is very like a big no-no in her eyes. You've got Kiri, who's not her birth daughter for a start, but even just as a daughter, she's having this problem where she's having seizures if she tries to connect with Awa, and like she can't quite like be the full Na'vi she's supposed to be, and there's all these questions around her and who she is and so on. And I think this idea that she's worried in Kiri it doesn't matter as much, although technically it comes from Gracie's avatar, so it's still, I guess, the same, just not from Jake. But this idea is the human side that's corrupted them, that makes them not a pure Na'vi, and her dealing with like how she feels about that and readdressing how she looks at people because of that. And you know, all this plays out as she's like struggling to hold the bow open because she gets injured during this big first Sky action sequence we were talking about. Because immediately, as soon as her, right, and her new villain Varang lock eyes, I'm like, oh shit, she's got a new arch nemesis, because we've got like, you know, a badass female villain for Neytiri to fight. And do you know what? Neytiri gets to be a badass in this movie. Now, I know not the whole time, but she effectively later on launches a one-woman rescue mission in a human city. Like an absolute, like, you know, badass bitch. Oh, yeah. It's great.
I love that sequence. Just skip ahead for a moment. Yeah. I love that sequence because there are 3 completely independent, like, help Jake Sully escape, like, plans going on. And the 2 human characters that are involved in that, their plans suck. There is no plan. It's just like, whatever, we'll do what we can. Hers, however, is so efficient and so perfectly coordinated and so effortless that you're like, yeah, no, it makes sense. She's fantastic.
She's like, come, we waste time. Come on now, you stupid human. So, no, I really like that stuff. So, anyway, to get back to Spider and his whole thing, is that when this big attack happens, right, and the kids all survive, the kids end up together on the ground, and they're running from the Ash Na'vi, who are chasing them through the forest. And there's some really great sequences here, actually, of them just running and barely getting away, and so on. But the big thing that actually leads to them getting caught again is that Spider's gas mask, which has been kind of running on empty for a while at this point, completely tanks out. And he's just, like, he starts, you know, falls to the ground, he can't breathe, he's struggling. And in a moment of desperation, Kiri, who of course has had this mysterious connection. I mean, I think when I talked about Way of Water, I basically stood up and yelled, the father is Awa. Awa is the daddy, right? It's as clear as day that this is a birth between Grace and Awa. 2 mummies.
What are you talking about?
Right?
No, you're right. You're right.
Right? So she basically uses her power, right? Not really knowing what she's doing, right? But we get the same little floating thing the same thing in the first movie that told Neytiri not to kill Jake. That comes down.
I'm gonna call it the jellyfish of the soul. It's basically what it is.
It makes me think. I get what you're saying, jelly. It makes me think more of like it's like a bigger version of like a dandelion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looked like me. Anyway,
I'm just saying how it like floats in the air. It just has a jellyfish quality.
Yeah. So she basically has the ground come up and connect to him in the same way that when they're doing the transfers of the bodies at the tree, like the sort of the roots come up and sort of go into the body. And she basically transforms Spider into someone who can breathe Pandora air, or Awa at least gives a helping hand in making sure he is now physically capable of working on Pandora.
So as it was happening, I felt like it was just going to be hand-wavy magic bullshit where it was just going to be like, and now we can breathe here, and everyone's like, don't worry about it. It's
that's,
just
that's the thing though, right? Is that so much plot comes out of this because all the other humans are like, wait a minute, can we replicate this? Because we want to colonize this stupid planet.
Even with the plot coming out of it, I still felt like it was going to be hand-wavy bullshit. I still felt like it was going to be whatever. But the moment that like they sit down, they get him to a lab, and then like the scientists who are on the side of good are like, here's how it works. I'm like, okay, I like this. I like the idea that you took the time to sit down and say, here is exactly what is happening. And, you know, it's still magic-y bullshit as to how it happened, but it's magic-y bullshit that we've established over the course of this franchise to be a thing, and that it works the way it does.
Yeah, well, I think it makes sense to me, because if Awa and, like, you know, Pandora's natural energies and all the vines and stuff, if that can transfer someone to an avatar body permanently, it makes sense that they can also fiddle with just a human body to some extent.
Yes. I mean, just to fast forward a little bit in the plot here, they go through a little bit more with the Ash people, but then end up getting, so Neytiri got picked up because she was injured by the human scientists, the good people. They treated her. Then they went out to find the kids.
And the other guy, I can't remember the other guy's name.
Yep. Then they went out to find the kids. They brought them all back to the thing. They ran some tests on Spider, and they discovered two things. The first of which is the explanation of like, okay, what ended up happening was his body just is basically full of mycelium, full of a fungus that is allowing him to take in the air of Pandora, translate it into oxygen, and then he's able to breathe that. So he is able to survive on that now, but it is a symbiosis and we cannot separate them. So we just got to let it be the way it is. The second thing is far more ridiculous and insane, where they spread apart his dreadlocks on the back of his neck and show that he's getting himself a little avatar penis, or however you want to call it.
The hair tentacle. Yeah. Squiggly.
Starting to grow out.
Yeah, which is obviously, I mean, that's the whole thing of itself. I you know, I'm like, okay, all right, he wants to be one of the Na'vi. That's all he wants to live here. He wants to be on Pandora. Now he might actually get to interact with the creatures the same way they do. He can have Na'vi sex with Kiri when they're both ready for that. I mean, you know, that seems to be something we're building to.
Yeah, can you do me a reminder here? Because I don't remember this being a thing. Did they have a thing in the Way of Water? Was there that flirtation there?
There was a flirtation, yeah. I mean, in this movie they kiss, obviously. In the last movie, it never went that far, but there was definitely like an attraction between them, yeah.
Okay.
That was there.
I just didn't remember that bit. And so when they were setting up here, I'm like, okay, they're setting it up here. But if you're saying it was there beforehand, so be it.
Yeah, I think I remember talking about it in the review that was clearly kind of what they were setting up. So that's like one thing that he's got the danglies, right? What's interesting about the danglies in this one, right? There's a few new interesting ways that they're brought up. One is that the Ash people, like Veranda, she likes to cut them off. Varang. She likes to cut them off, right? Like, and that's like, oh, that's like vicious. Like, that's worse than death to a Na'vi, is to have that cut off, because it's not just their sex organ, it's also how they communicate with their animals, it's how they communicate with Awa. It's like a very, you know, multi-purpose tool, if you will. But the other thing is that when all the plots kind of emerge and Quaritch is kind of coming back into it, and he's in his he's always in his avatar body, actually, what am I saying? But he's looking for Jake in that. And it's in the middle of all this stuff that's just happened with the big sky attack, and the kids are running around from the Ash people. He runs into Jake, and he actually wins, right? He's able to arrest Jake effectively and put cuffs on him. But he's like, hey, Spider's not got his mask, or his refill. Like, he's going to be dead soon. We need to go find him. I can help you do that. So we get this kind of thing where Jake and Quaritch are kind of working together for a little bit. And I actually thought they were going to take that further. I was kind of expecting for him to make more of like a turn towards, and it ends up going a completely different direction once we really get into it. But when they try and save the kids and they end up in the camp with the Ash people, Varang grabs his hair and connects the squiddly dudes together, and like kind of tries to overpower him right through this connection, and this is like a trick she uses on multiple people in the movie. But first of all, I was like, is this kind of like sexual assault? Because that's what they used their bits for. So that's kind of weird. So that was interesting. But then that kind of makes them, because she's like, hey, I want to know how to use this metal thing. Show me how to make thunder. And Loak's like, no, I'm not doing that. There's no bullets left anyway. I can't do it. Quaritch is like, yeah, I'll show you how to fire the big gun. And he's like, yeah, you put it there, you pull the trigger, and doesn't that feel good? And it's all, the sexual tension immediately between these two. And it's like, oh, is this like a twisted version of like Jake meeting Natiri? This is like his Natiri. Yeah. Oh god, this is going wild places.
That's the thing that Jake does as they continue on with this thing of eventually they end up escaping from them and blah blah blah. Jake points out like, hey, you're in this new body. You're not technically Quaritch because that guy died and you just have his memories. You can be whatever you want to be. Wouldn't you like to become one with nature? Don't you want to talk to Awa? And so we are trying to set up this thing of, can we take Quaritch down this same path as Jake? But because of the way the movie plays out, he takes this perverted dark side path of like, no, I'm going to do what you say, but I'm going to do it the wrong way.
Yeah, because when they escape, they actually do have to kind of coexist. And like Quaritch is like, oh, it's time for us to finish our knife fight. And then Jake's like, yeah, but I'm really tired after all fighting all those people. Can we just like, save our energy in case they find us? And he's like, yeah, all right. And they end up just kind of sitting there, and it's just kind of like this uneasy alliance kind of thing. But something you said there. So the next time we see Varang, for the most part, is when Quaritch is back at base, he's talking to the others, and he's already starting to conflict a little bit with the general lady and the others because they're not really agreeing with these. They basically see him as being a failure by this point because he's not managed to bring in Jake and so on.
It's weird because obviously everyone has their own things they want to do. Quaritch is all about Spider because that's his son. He wants to get his son back. I'm blanking on his name, the business guy.
Oh, Giovanni Ribisi?
Yeah, whatever his character's name is. He is all in on the idea that once they saw on some video recording that Spider's able to breathe the air, he's like, well, we got to get that. Like, that's super important to the idea of getting this all done. And then the general lady's basically just down on the, no, we're just going to kill all of them. Like, all of them are a problem for humanity. We're not going to worry about keeping specific ones alive for any reason.
Yeah. No, so, but Quaritch's like, oh no, we need like a better game plan. And it cut to him walking up the side, like in front of the volcano. Like, he's not on the volcano, but like, the volcano's like right in the background, and he's walking on this barren land in front of it. And he gets to the camp of the Ash people, and he's like, hey, wait, I brought some guns, I brought you some nice thunder. Let me speak to your leader. Anyway, and there's a whole thing here where it's like, okay, he's a little perhaps in over his head, because like, why would she just listen to him? But then she's also a little bit presumptuous in thinking that, oh, he's just, some stupid sky person that I want to get rid of as quickly as possible. Because when he shows the weapons and stuff, and also has like his buddy snipe one of them to prove that he's protected, she's like, all right, come in my tent, let's talk. And sure enough,
she's so menacing when she does it too, because she figures out where the shot comes from, and she just stares him down the entire time.
Yeah, I want to be clear. Varang has a great look. Like, every time she was staring at the camera, I was like, like, oh, all right, okay.
Yep.
And then they go into the tent, and amongst other things, she's like, hey, you're kind of interesting. Maybe I'll keep you as my pet and use you for pleasure. And Quaritch is like, well, that sounds like a fun weekend, but we got some other things to do. And I'm like, oh, they're really playing up the sexiness of this villain. Like, they're really going for the, like, the tall... all the people who were into Lady Dimitrescu and Resident Evil 8, they're all going to be foaming at the mouth over Varang here.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That seems to be the same core group there.
Yeah. She gives him some Navi cocaine, I think.
Some sort of hallucinogenic.
Yeah. Shoves it up his nose, and he's like, whoa, that's strong stuff. And that's when he's like, oh, that's not cool. And she's asking questions and whatnot. But ultimately, she's just trying to use him here. But he eventually says, you keep looking at me like as someone to like use for whatever purpose and then get rid of me. But maybe I'm something that you never considered might exist. And she's like, what? An equal. Like, like the Sky people want to do this, this, and this. Jake and the other Na'vi, they all want to do this, this, and this. And it was. I almost thought like here it was setting up, and I don't even necessarily think that this is incorrect yet. It's just that it's not happened so far. Is that eventually Quaritch is going to like side more with her and like sort of abandon the human part of like the whole mission?
I think he's going to abandon the human mission, but I think it's going to be his own path. I think it's going to be his own thing. This was just the thing that like allowed him to start moving down that third way, allowed him to come down that dark Na'vi path. But no, the other thing that happens in the scene that I just want to make clear is she gives the backstory for her tribe, like what happened, why are they evil Na'vi?
Yes. And
essentially it's just they lived in the shadow of this volcano. One day it erupted, it burned everything around them. They prayed to Awa, said, hey, save us, and Awa didn't show up. So they're like, all right, well, screw her then. We're gonna burn it all to the ground. Screw Awa.
Yeah, it's not even necessarily that they don't believe in Awa. They just don't, they worship Awa. They see Awa as like, she has no power over us. We're not going to bow to her, kind of thing.
And that's her entire philosophy and why she, is so intent on Quaritch's offer for firepower and stuff like that is she wants to spread this philosophy of fire to all the other tribes and just burn them all.
Yeah, I want to make this clear. One, she looks like she's really into, like, she's like a pyromaniac. She really likes watching fire burn, so that's like a whole part of her character.
So when she hits Quaritch with the hold on, just very quick. When she hits Quaritch with the hallucinogenic, she like dips her fingers in an oil and lights them on fire. And I swear to God, she's just doing like the glow stick at a rave thing for a while. She's just like right in his face as he's tripping balls. Like, yeah, that's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, but she really into fire. But then the other thing here that I think is really smartly set up is that earlier scene where Jake tries to say, hey, we need to use these guns to fight against the Sky People because they're going to bring a lot of weapons. And they're like, no, we can't use these. These are devil weapons. We don't need these things. I think it really sets up how different Varang is when she sees a gun and she's like, I want that. Let's make the thunder. We want to use their weapons against not only just them, but everyone. We want to use these weapons for our own gain. Like, they immediately want to jump on the firepower ship,
Yeah, absolutely. I have opened the Avatar wiki here just to keep track of character names and stuff like that. One of the articles I was linked to it says the 3 laws of Awa, which I guess are the holy creed or whatever of all Na'vi that follow Awa. The first one is you shall not set stone upon stone. So basically don't build like big structures like that. Or if you build anything, it's just got to be like wood and whatever. Second one, do not use a wheel. So no carts, nothing like that sort of stuff. And then the third one, which is where the metal stuff come from, is nor use the metals of the ground. So the fact that this group, the Ash people, don't believe in Awa anymore, basically is full reign of like, the only thing stopping us was Awa's laws. So yeah, of course we use guns, whatever.
Yeah. So obviously later on we get these visuals of them all riding in on their big dragonfly things, holding machine guns. And not only that, so we get a montage here of Quaritch like showing them all how to use guns, and like, a lot of them are picking up these machine guns. Then he hands her, Varang, a flamethrower, and she is like turned on by this flame firing out.
She literally pulls it like 2 or 3 times and then grabs Quaritch by the hand and goes into her tent.
Yes.
Like, it's fully implied what happens there.
Yeah, and even if they didn't have sex then, it's definitely something they did later, because we see them sleeping next to each other later on. So,
and that's what I like about Quaritch's character here, is that while it still feels like he's true to the character of like the mission or whatever, he at the beginning of the thing, he specifically tells Jake, like, I'm not a traitor. I remember what team I'm fighting for. But then over the course of this movie, you see that slow transition where he doesn't feel like he's betrayed himself, his own mission, but he's gone fully native. Like, he's 100% on her side, and he's walking out like with the full face paint on, not wearing his uniform. And the general calls him out for that at one point, like, what are you doing, man? You're absolutely just part of their tribe now.
Do you not remember what a uniform is, soldier? Yeah. All that kind of thing. So I mean, that stuff's great. And then when they do get Jake, later on, right? There's a sequence in the middle where they manage to grab him. He, there's a more to say about it in that, because it's a whole standoff moment. But when they take him back to the city that the humans have built, which we saw in the last movie as well, but we see a bit more of it here. It does feel like a city street on Earth to an extent, only in the sense that there's like crowds of people like waiting, and they're like, all like cheering and booing as like, hey, we got the convict, the runaway,
the traitor of Earth.
Yeah, Jake Sully, the guy who became the Turak Nakto, or whatever the phrase was.
Torak Makto?
Turak Makto, yeah,
something like that.
But no, that was such an interesting visual, seeing him standing surrounded by like humans and like them taking photographs. But then of course the other big thing here is what you were getting at is that the Ash people fly in with them, and they've all got these little like chip sensor things to show the radars that these are friendlies, and like that even confuses the general. She's like, wait, they've all got friendly tags? What? And it's like, oh yeah, because Quaritch has handed these out, and when she comes up and says, you'll escort these primitive savages off my base immediately, and he's like, don't be an asshole, General. Take the win. And he takes his new girlfriend off for sex, just walks past her. It's like, all right.
Well, he does the thing where because they're surrounded by people, he plays the crowd.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, hey, we got him, and it's also thanks to the tribe people. So the general's like, yeah, I guess it is. Okay, crowd, I guess we'll run with that.
Yeah, so it's such an interesting just visual difference to be having like several scenes set in this like city they've built, just because it just feels so different from the jungle and the water and all that other stuff we've been seeing the last like movie and a half.
I really like that from the viewpoint of, if this were all one big script, like this would feel great to move to after all of the showing the majesty of the water and showing all this stuff here, and you go to this harsh
steel,
industrialized
concrete. Yeah. It's all just the stuff you think of. And they're working on Spider. I mean, Quaritch tries to bring him a burger at one point. He's like, I brought you a burger. Spider just hits it away immediately. And then he tries to, he does this whole thing, and this got a big laugh in my audience actually, is that he's like, Quaritch is like, hey, I know I'm still Quaritch. Here's my dog tags to prove it. And he shows him the dog tags, and just as he's leaving, he's like, hey, can I keep those? And he's like, sure, son. And he feels touched that his son wants his dog tags, and then the next time you see Spider, he's using it to like unscrew the vent, and it's like, that got such a big laugh in my theater.
I never once thought for a minute that he was being genuine with that. I was like, this is all part of a plan. Of course he's using them to escape.
Yeah. And then of course he immediately goes and tries to help Sully, who's in a glass cage in the middle of like a street, and it's like, hey, you're getting executed tomorrow. Like, they're just going to like fire squad him, and that's going to be the end of that.
Yep. But even now, Jake Sully's like, hey, Quaritch, there is another way. You can not be a dick. We can have you get one with Awa.
Yeah, and this is actually what builds up to Neytiri's big, because Neytiri, throughout the movie by this point, has suggested killing Spider because, like, hey, if he's dangerous, if the idea that the humans could get this ability to breathe here, and that's a danger to us all, and it's a danger to the planet, then it's safer to just kill him right now. Like, why even try and protect them? They'll just find them eventually. Let's just kill. And Jake's like, no, that's, inhuman. We cannot do that. There's another way. We're better than that. And sort of talks her down.
There's numerous times in here where they have a discussion, they say whatever, and eventually he says, no, we're not doing that, and she just kind of relents by saying, like, if that's what Torak Makto wants, and he's like, that's not, come on, we were having a discussion, don't put the chosen one stuff on me.
Yeah, she's basically saying, yeah, well, if that's what my husband, the boss, says, and like, walks off. Yeah, she's playing that card. But when he's been captured and she's left on her own, and by this point Loak's like rebuilt her bow, so she's like been kind of re-inspired a little bit by that and who her son is. She makes the choice to say, F it, I'm going to go and get my damn husband back. And this is like, everything about this is just badass. Like, she paints herself like an Ash Navi, right? She gets the red paint on and all that. She flies in, she finds like, a tag off one of the dead Ash or whatever, and she flies in the city and goes like snooping around, and she's like sneaking around, and like she's just like walking casually past some of the human guards who just think she's one of the tribe that are hanging around. And
they like kind of hit on her. I guess Quaritch is making more progress there than we would have thought.
Yep. He catcalls her, and she gets into the tent where Varang is and holds a blade to her throat. And Varang thinks she gets away, but then it's revealed that Neytiri has her hair, dangly, like with her
I'll
knife.
go ahead. The official name, whether we use it or not, is the Q, the Kuru, as the Na'vi call it.
Yeah, I remember them bringing it up at least once. I always forget what it's actually called, though. The dangly hair.
The dangly hair. The braid.
But yeah, like, so it's just like, no, like, and obviously this feels like just desserts because Varang's been threatened to cut this, or they're not even just threatening, she has been cutting this off of various Na'vi throughout the movie. Meanwhile, you know, like, and this is maybe one of the poorer setup things in the movie is the Gudooder marine biologist played by Jermaine Clement, who decides to try and break Sully out because he's not happy with the plans to kill all of the whales.
Again, the whale people, that entire plot line, like, collectively between Way of Water to here, it works. It's obviously that was all set up and it was done very well in Way of Water. Just this movie, I feel like it's a back burner thing. It's just like, yeah, they're killing the whales. You know that already. We're not going to bring it back up.
So he does a whole thing with a big bulldozer thing where he breaks open the cage and shields Sully. What's interesting though is the guy, like, after he runs away, after he's helped Sully run away for a little bit, he just kind of disappears from the movie. I don't think you see him again after that.
I kept on expecting it to be a thing where, like, the general would, like, bring him into the brig or something like that. Like, anything to show that there was a consequence for him betraying humanity. But for all I know, he's out living with the Na'vi now.
Or they just didn't know he did that, so he just snuck off into the night and he's just pretending to be normal, I guess.
Yeah, he's like, no, I totally want to help kill the whales, guys. Definitely. Yeah.
But there's a whole thing here where Spider, like, you know, comes out and stands in front of him, and, like, Giovanni Ribisi's like, no, you can't shoot him. Like, tell him to stand down. Because they're just going to kill Jake. Like, I'll just fire a rocket at him. Who cares? Let's get rid of him. We're going to kill him anyway. But it's like, no. Spider's in front of him, try to sort of human shield him. Literally.
They're trying to delay this helicopter just long enough for Quaritch and his crew to arrive and pick up Sully or pick up Spider at least. Yeah. Whatever happens to Sully's whatever happens to Sully.
So that's all playing out, and like I said, I love some of the visuals in Atiri, like doing like the stealth flying around the city. But she ends up swooping in at the very end of this, and like she takes out the chopper that's going to kill them.
Yeah, to be clear, she brought along. They set up at the beginning when they were raiding the underwater ship, like 4 or 5 RPGs strapped to arrows.
Yes. And
she brought those along. And it's not just she took down the helicopter. Like, her first strike was blowing up at least a city block.
Oh, yeah, she has like a gas mains or something. It's like a gas tank or something she hits. Yeah, no, because at the start he finds these RPGs, and then a couple of scenes later he's like, "Hey, I know you want to use your bow and Atiri, so I've attached them to some arrows for your convenience." Yep. So yeah, she uses them during this.
I love when that happens. He hands it to her, and she just like drops it on the ground, and I just expect him to be like, "Jesus Christ, don't do that."
Atiri, volatile. It's volatile. So, you know, and Spyro gets on the I can't remember what the creatures are called, but the flying
dragonfly.
The dragonfly, yeah. They jump on the dragonfly and they fly off. And part of me was thinking, because I actually had the thought earlier in the movie, and it does happen in a couple of minutes actually, but I did have the thought it's going to mean a lot if Neytiri says to Spider, "I see you." That thought did enter my head, like, earlier in the film, probably in the scene where she was saying we should kill him, right? I was thinking, oh, it's going to be such a big deal if she accepts Spider at some point. So,
yes, and you know, this scene plays out as they're flying back, and then Jake basically says, "Hey," he's looking at Spider, who's asleep. He's like, "Hey, we gotta land. We gotta take care of something real quick." And this is the part that, if I'm going to side with the people who say Spider's annoying, it's this sequence where he's just talking a lot about needing to take a piss. As in the foreground, we have Jake and Neytiri talking about, like, hey, we might have to kill him. Like, that might be the thing. And he's just back there like, man, there's not even a fly on this jumpsuit. I'm like, how do you know what a fly is? What are you doing?
You've been wearing Tarzan underwear for like most of your life. Yeah. No, so that aside, because I agree that's a bit silly, right? I'm not going to defend Spider's antics as he's just making small talk, basically. But everything else about this, I love this next, like, 5 minutes. The fact that Jake's the one that says, "I think you were right, Neytiri. I think they're going to get to him no matter what. And if they can breathe here, it's going to lead to the entire planet being ruined, just like Earth was. And you know, which is interesting. If you've seen the extended version of the first Avatar, you've actually seen a little glimpse of Earth, and you know that it's kind of an industrial nightmare. You don't need to see that. You can kind of just assume it based on the way the real world's going, to be honest. It still works. But
I was going to say, we don't even need Avatar to make that assumption. It's just, humanity, we screwed it up.
But he's like, hey, and Neytiri, very notably, and this is, you know, good writing and performance from Saldaña, is that she's not like, you know, like if he'd said this earlier on, her reaction to it might have been very different, right? But here, she's very quiet. She's kind of just sort of taking it in. And
she makes the point that this is right after he just like stood in front of a chopper to save his life.
Yeah, she's arguing against killing him to an extent by saying, hey, he just saved your life. So that's already notable that she's sticking up for Spider. It's a complete role reversal from earlier. And it feels kind of dark that Jake's the one that's saying, hey, we should probably kill him. And we get this whole extended sequence where he's like, hey, Spider, come with me. And he walks him into the jungle. And as it goes on, Spider sort of starts to slowly realize, wait a minute, I think I know where this is going. Because he gets him to kneel down, and then he starts begging and saying, please don't do this, so on and so on. And like, and you know, this is, I actually did see some of the audience around me kind of gasping, holding their hands up to their face. This idea that Spider's aware that he's going to die, and even at a certain point accepts that, okay, I'm accepting that this is about to happen, but can you at least tell me if you still love me before you kill me? And he calls him dad at one point during this as well, I'm sure. And Jake says, yeah, I love you with all my heart, but like, this needs to happen. And it cuts back to Neytiri, and she's like washing the war paint off her face, which again, just them showing off with the effects at this point.
I mean, that, and there's also obviously the deeper sympathetic meaning of like, you know, they were a murderous death cult. I was saying the murder of this child, but I'm washing that away from me now.
Yeah, and also it's red, so it kind of looks like she's washing blood off of her face as well. There's a little bit of that visual going on.
And then there also was the earlier bit where apparently their mourning period, whatever that is, involves her wearing some level of like paint. So washing that off now may show like, I'm through with my mourning, I'm moving on.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more, like I've got more to say on like why she makes this decision. But as she's looking down into the water, she clearly changes her mind and runs in to stop what's about to happen. Now, Jake takes the strike, but obviously then the camera reveals that he is actually just stabbed past his head. He's not actually him. He's also chosen or realized that he can't do this. He can't go through with it. And Neytiri rushes in and says, we'll find another way. And she looks at Spider and says, I see you. And, you know, it kind of completes that kind of thing. Now, yes, as far as the motivations here and why I think she does change her mind, I think that part of it is the shock of Jake being the one to suggest this. I think her seeing, because so much of this movie, going back to that earlier conversation about Jake's human blood is, you know, ruined my children and they're not quite right as well and all that, like, and she's got all this hate built up on her. This idea that she fell for Jake once upon a time when he was still technically more human than he is now, and now she's this character who is literally in a very different way from Jake, but similar in a lot of ways, is a human becoming a Na'vi. Not in the exact same Avatar way, but certainly it's happening, right? He's got the danglies, he's breathing on Pandora.
More so than anything else.
So you've got that happening, so there's a parallel there in a lot of ways. But this idea that Jake is now suggesting that they kill this person who's innocent, who's not even just innocent, but is someone they care about and who's put his neck out for them, beyond that. I think her hearing him say that is her realizing how much that Jake has changed and how he's going to become not the person she cared about in the first place. Like, the reason why she fell for Jake in the first place, in a lot of ways, would have been his, you know, who he was as a person, what he cared about, the fact that he was willing to stand up for the Na'vi when they weren't his people at the time, and so on. So this idea of him becoming a killer is not something she wants her husband to become as well. And I just, like, almost like, before she was willing to suggest let's just kill Spider, because it's almost like a comfort knowing, oh, you'll never agree to that. Like, I know that's not going to just happen because Jake's going to argue with me on it. But the second he's like saying, yeah, you know what, you're right, he's like, oh, wait, no, I thought you were going to be like the safety net here. I need to actually reassess my decisions in life. And you know, if there's going to be consequences to me saying we should kill Spider, I actually have to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is part of it. I think there is that idea of she feels safe in her grief and her mourning to say whatever because she knows Jake is going to be more level-headed there. But I do think that it is also a character growth aspect. This idea,
Oh, sure,
that
yeah.
she obviously her wearing the face paint at that part and having her mortal enemy throughout this portion being Varang is showing that if she continues down this path of hatred and warmongering and fear like that, she's just going to be more like Varang. Like, she is going to take that. And that's not something that she wants to see in herself. So this is that moment of self-reflection. She washes herself of that and she becomes Neytiri again. She moves back into her old life.
Yeah, Varang's nothing but hatred, and her realizing that. But when I was getting at the Jake stuff, though, it wasn't just about her not wanting him to become something, although I think that is part of it. But I think it's more just a realization that instead of him convincing her to do the right thing, she's realized that she's convinced him to become worse, potentially. And I think that realization hits a bit hard there.
I agree. I like this scene in a vacuum. I really do like everything going on here. And when you take in the stuff with Varang and all that, I think it accomplishes a bit more. There's two and a half things I want to specifically, though, bring up that's a little bit of a problem in the larger context of the movie. One, it feels very drag and drop for me. It doesn't feel like this point of the story makes sense for Jake to all of a sudden be at that point, to be at the point to say we need to kill Spider. It doesn't feel like there was enough of a thing before this. Like, if we had a little bit where, I don't know, Quaritch said, by the way, we're researching how to duplicate Spider's thing, like we've run tests on him, we're doing whatever, then yeah, maybe that could be enough. Maybe that would be enough to do it. But there's nothing in it, I think, that really has Jake pushed over that line, except for humans bad, and he wants humans to not stick around here, which has been throughout the whole movie. I don't think going to the human city doubles down on that much.
If I was to argue anything there, I would say that seeing them not kill him because Spider's in front, because they see Spider as that important, is maybe like, I could argue that's like a sign to him. Okay. I don't necessarily completely disagree, though, that maybe they didn't completely sell me on him being at this point by now. But everything in the sequence itself, I really like. And I liked his earlier debates with Neytiri and arguments with her. So this through line for me really worked for both him and especially Neytiri. Because Neytiri is the better of the two characters. I don't think anyone has ever really debated that, honestly.
No, I agree. The other part of it is it does feel a bit weird what the immediate aftermath is, because the very next thing we get after this sequence is them basically saying, like, we're not going to do it, we're not taking that path, like, we're going to find another way. Throughout the entire movie, well, at the beginning, I guess, they specifically have the leader of the reef people say, hey, if we have such a threat coming up, maybe you could do the whole Chosen One thing. Go get your super big dragonfly and like rain hellfire from above. And he's like, no. It's too violent. It's too much. I'm not doing that. We're not going back to that ever again. And then immediately after this scene of saying, like, no, we're not going to cross that line, he immediately then goes to his old dragonfly and says, all right, but I'm crossing that line. Like, I'm going to become the super violent Toruk Makto once again, and we're going to rain hellfire from above. So it feels like a bit of a mixed message there. To say they found another way is still accurate, but it feels like the other way is more violence.
Well, but that's the thing, though. I think the problem here is the way you're phrasing that there is only because of the way he phrased it earlier in the movie. Based on the original movie, I would never have said, oh, him going to the big dragon and becoming the Chosen One again is him choosing violence. Like, obviously there's going to be violence in terms of fighting, but the only reason why you're putting a negative spin on it is because the way he phrased it when he asked him to at the start of the movie.
Well, he put the negative spin on it. He's the one who said that. It's a bad thing we don't want to do.
Yeah, but it was never phrased that way before. So my critique here isn't anything to do with him making this decision. It's only just with how he phrased that earlier on, because it puts this weird negative light on it. It was never presented that way before. It was a good thing that he got that in the first movie. It was never even hinted at that it was a bad thing in the first movie.
I agree. You're totally right, but I'm taking the context that the movie is giving me. If they view it as a negative thing, then I'm going to be curious why they're doing the negative thing now.
Well, to be fair, they don't. Only he does. Like the reef people want it. Neytiri, I think, is okay with it. She's probably like, you were the sexiest to me ever when you were
That's true.
riding that thing.
As soon as he's flapping down on the dragonfly, everyone else is like, oh, such strong winds. But she's like, yes, my husband's home.
Mrs. Sully is expecting her husband back anytime now.
That's fair. Yeah, the one good thing that he says, like, the reason he's so against it is essentially the bloodlust that he feels when he connects with the dragon was too much for him. It's something he doesn't like feeling. So fair enough. It is a personal negative rather than a group negative.
Yeah. To be fair, though, this is where it does kind of turn into just the third act, where it's like, okay, they're going to be coming because they want to kill all the whales when they all gather for their ceremony, and they're going to just kill them all. That's what their plan is.
Yep.
The Na'vi are going to try and protect them, and they're going to get all the clans that are nearby to come and help, which we see a little montage of that. It feels a lot like the first movie when they're sort of getting the extra clans to come in, try to convince the whales to join in, and that's when the son comes back in and says, hey, like this outcast is, I've seen him go back to his family. His entire family of whales are almost entirely dead, barring this one who's heavily injured. Like, they're going to keep coming, and, he stands up for himself. Even when Jake tells him to stop talking, he's like, no, I'm going to speak. This is my time to speak. And, the whales get convinced.
Yeah. All the I'll call them teenagers, but all the people around the age of Loak are like, well, if he's an outcast, then I'm an outcast too. We're all outcasts together because this is the right thing to do. We have to fight. Yeah.
Because it's the love interest and her two brothers. And Saria. The T at the start throws me off of her name, but the love interest is Saria. One of her brothers does die in the third act. The short-haired one does die, so there is some casualties there. But I think the convincing the whale stuff here, I like the idea of like Loak standing up and saying, no, you're wrong for making him an outcast, and finally making that point, because we've been definitely driving towards it since the last movie. But this is definitely where it started to feel like we were going through some of the same motions, I think, as the last movie. This is where I felt the sameness kind of come into it. And then the fact
it felt like convincing the reef people again. It felt like convincing them to do something to like fight against and save their village and whatnot.
Yeah. But and just the fact that, we're sort of fighting on the same types of warships that are coming in the water. It's the exact same types of things. Obviously there's some fun moments in these set pieces that are new. Like, you've got all the Na'vi and the flying creatures up in the floating rocks. You've got the ones in the sort of seahorse ones under the water. You've got like above and below. You've got all this stuff going on. The whales are joining in.
They introduce a giant danger zone on the map, which is apparently like a magnetic flux area that if any ships get near there, they'll just get torn apart.
Which is a fun element to throw in. But this is the stuff that did feel mostly quite samey, because it just kind of felt like, okay, they're kind of split up, they're in jeopardy, they're kind of winning, they're in jeopardy, like it's going back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, it's literally the thing of, okay, the humans launched their plan. It seems to be going well, but of course we get to see the Na'vi all hanging around. They launched their end of the plan. It's an overwhelming success, but then, oops, no one predicted the Fire Nation would attack.
Yeah, that's when it sort of takes a turn for the worst, is when Quaritch, who's been told to stand down and he's under court-martial or whatever, he shows up with Varang and her people, and they come in guns blazing, looking for Jake and all the rest of it. And of course, we get a standoff with Jake and Quaritch, and they end up fighting inside the gravitational thing. They're on one of the floating rocks, so there's a lot of that going on. The kids are in jeopardy. A big part of it is that the kids, the youngest, Took, gets kidnapped by Quaritch and Varang. Neytiri gets grabbed as well. In fact, Neytiri gets grabbed after she's helped Kate Winslet give birth, and then Kate Winslet dies because she was fighting whilst heavily pregnant, which is a nice little payoff, actually, because earlier in the movie, when she was trying to help Neytiri and like patch up her wound, and she's trying to give her advice, Neytiri gets kind of bitchy about it and is like, I might forget that you're with child if you don't stop talking, and like they sort of hiss at each other, and I'm like, oh damn, the claws are out here.
Oh yeah, no, because it's after she goes and gets like treatment in an actual lab from the humans or whatever, and then she's Kate Winslet's just like, yeah, you took all those stupid actual medicines, you need some herbs, and she's like, your herbs suck.
Which is almost like Neytiri for a second, her faith in Awa wavering a little bit, like, no, the actual medicine was way better. But no, I we were talking about the third act being similar. The fight scenes, yes, I agree. Like the ships, all that stuff, it feels very similar. Even the
bit where the whales, the very first strike in the fight is the whales coming out and like landing on the ships. I watched a recap of Way of Water just to make sure I was fully up, and they literally showed the clip of the Outcast doing that exact same thing.
And it was more impactful because that was kind of like, oh, they're almost like, that was at their lowest moment where they're going to lose, and then the whale saved the day. So it was a bigger impact in Way of Water when it happened.
Yes. So all that's similar. But the thing that got me the most of, are we just doing the exact same movie again? Because this is the bit that really was getting to me, is when the kid is kidnapped, like the transitioning of now they're on the boat and they're being held captive. And I'm like, I swear to God, this was exactly the same in Way of Water.
It's very similar. Things have changed up though, and Neytiri's kind of protecting this newborn baby that she's got in like a little pouch the entire time. And it ends up this ends up being the opportunity for Sully to be like, I'm injured, but I need to try and save my family, and the only person I've got to help me is my son. So it's like, all right, son, here's a rifle. You're my second. Cover me. I'll go in and save your mom and your sister.
Before we fully wrap up the plot, because we are pretty much at the end here, should we just really quick cover Kiri? We've skipped over Kiri this whole time.
Yeah, okay, so her whole thing is the seizures, right? If she tries to connect, so she's not allowed to connect. So when Spider says, oh, I wish I could do the connecting thing, and then she's like, well, I wish I could too. I'll die, apparently, if I try and do it again. But obviously, at a couple points in the movie when things are really bad, she risks it anyway to try and save people, right?
To be clear, she can connect. They don't have a problem with her, like, theoretically having the seizure. It's that their only way to connect is while underwater, and that's a big problem if you have a seizure underwater. But when they go back and they eventually visit the tree people, when they go back to their homeland or whatever, she's able to connect there. She has a seizure, but they just treat it medically.
Yeah. Although they do say though that if she has another seizure, she will die. So it's still a problem on land. Like it's not. It's not like
at this point now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not safe to do it on land either. It's just. It's more definite death in water because she's underwater at the time of seizure.
Right.
So they set that up, right, and then they do a whole big thing where when she's trying to convince Awa to like help with the fight, she goes down into the water one, which was set up last movie, and she connects. What?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. But just to be clear, earlier on in the movie, we do get the absolute confirmation of her origin as well.
I mean, there's not much to it. I mean, she finds out about it. We already knew all this, though, right? For the most part.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, they fully break it down of, like, here's exactly what happened. Virgin birth, essentially, from Awa. And
from Grace. From Gracie's avatar.
From Grace, but from Awa.
Yeah.
And you are essentially something special about you that makes it so that you can't connect to Awa the same way. Maybe it's the part human part of the clone or whatever it is, but something's weird about you.
It's not that she can. I mean, the scientists even say that it's more like for some reason there's like a firewall, but clearly we see that she can connect to creatures in a way that anyone else can't. She can sort of like tap into the network, if you will, in different ways. But anyway, big thing, she goes down, and the whole thing here is that when she's connecting and trying to like walk through the mystical land to get to Awa,
the spirit realm, whatever
inside the spirit realm, she's having the seizure. So Spider swims down, and for the first time he whips out his danglies and like hooks it up to hers and the thing.
That's what makes it an R-rated film. Whoops out his danglies. So
in the spirit world, he grabs her hand and says, here, I'm with you, let's get to Awa together. And then eventually Took as well does the same thing. She comes down, so it's all three of them, and they're both helping her, and they're getting towards Awa. And we get and I wasn't expecting this, but we get a visual to an extent of Awa. We get like a little bit of the side of a face, and it looks big. And there's one comparison point I can make of what it looked like. Didn't look like the same age, of course, but it looked like the Star Child from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes. I think that is the most immediate and direct comparison. It absolutely is the Star Child, if the Star Child was Na'vi.
Yeah, and obviously it's very obscured, and you only see a part of the face, and it's turning to look, and you see a bit of an eye. But it's like just enough where that's the image it conjured up, was the Star Child turning at the end of 2001, which is interesting. I mean, one, it could just be a visual homage because, hey, everyone loves Kubrick and 2001. I don't know if Cameron's even suggesting that like humans and Na'vi are a bit more connected in a sort of ancestral way than we maybe would have thought.
Is 2001 in the Avatar timeline? Is that what we're going for here?
Who's to say that it isn't?
Fourth movie's going to be crazy.
Well, except lawyers, I guess.
Oh, well. Who owns the rights to 2001? Who distributes that?
I mean, the movie's Warner Brothers, but...
Oh, yeah, they ain't getting that. There's no way Disney and James Cameron are going to play fair with that.
Yeah. I mean, the music isn't, like, owned by Warner, but they could license that music. If it's not even public domain, it might be. But
the Thus Spoke Zarathustra is definitely public domain, yeah.
Yeah, they could play that if they want as they're showing this thing off. I mean, there's nothing to say they can't. But yeah, it's definitely conjuring visuals in your head of the 2001 Star Child, which I'm not mad at. I was like, because it was almost like it made it easier to swallow. We were seeing a big mystical god looking thing as like, oh, it looks like the Star Child. That excites me because of the parallels and the correlations I can make.
There was a review that we did. It's either coming up or recently, because obviously new releases are messing with the schedule a little bit. But there was one review we did where I brought up the idea of coding and how for certain things in film, there's already an established visual language that people just go with. You don't have to reinvent the wheel each time. If you want to show a certain idea, then you do this. And I feel like this is the coding for a benevolent cosmic being beyond understanding. Like, people just kind of get that of like, it represents innocence and purity, and it's just an easy way to go visually.
And you can circumvent it. You can, change things up. You can, subvert expectations with this stuff. A visual language can be broken. It can be torn apart.
We zoom out of Awa and it just looks like Quaritch pre-turn. It's like, wait a minute, what?
That would get very confusing, but and that ends up getting some of the wildlife to help. There's like these big octopus-looking things that end up coming in to help with the fight at that point.
They're murderous cuttlefish, which again kind of doubles back to feeling like repeating Way of Water, where they had that shark thing that attacked when he was out in deep waters. I don't know if you remember that. Mm-hmm. I was watching this movie and I was thinking, oh, this is the same threat from Way of Water. These cuttlefish things, because he's out in deep water and he's being attacked. But then I went and again watched that recap and I saw it was a shark. I'm like, oh no, we're just doing the same thing but now different.
That's a weird thing for you to compare it to, though, because I feel like this moment's more reminiscent of the first movie when all the animals come in to help.
No. I'm not. The moment, yes, the moment itself. I'm saying the creature, because earlier on, Loak is attacked by these creatures.
Oh, sure.
And he says like, "Oh, they're the death in the water. They've come to judge you, whatever." I'm like, that's what the shark was. Why didn't we just reuse the shark? Why are we getting a whole new thing here that's doing the same function?
Did they say that about the shark last time?
Maybe not, but like it was literally the thing that attacked him when he was out in deep waters, out in the middle of nowhere. And this is the exact same setting, but now it's squids.
Oh, it's not, though. He's much further out this time.
Oh, he is, but it's the same. Like, it's the functionally, as long as you don't know the geology of the planet, the geography, it's the same.
Yeah, but they show, like, I think they show you him in a storm struggling to swim forward to show that he's traveling a great distance. I think they do set it up visually.
In which case, fair enough. But then why would the squid also be available to join the fight here back at the reef if they are only existing so far away?
It was powerful. What do you want from it?
All right. It's not a huge complaint. I just found it because as I was watching it, without Way of Water in my mind, I was thinking, oh, I remember the predator in the ocean from the last movie. I assume it's the same.
This is a new problem. No, this is a new problem.
All right.
Do you know how many creatures there are in the ocean? How many different types?
At least 4. Whales, dolphins, fish, and sharks.
How many different types of fish and sea creatures, and how many like similar ones there are that are slightly different to each other? Like,
no, you're right.
You being annoyed that there's 2 different types of predator in the ocean, it's kind of absurd, frankly.
Why are there so many different Na'vi clans? Can't we just have one and a climate that consists over the entire planet? Give me my Star Wars.
Hey, to be fair to it, yeah, that's something to do with Pandora, is that it does have different, parts of the planet. There's a volcanic area, there's jungle, there's like this more tropic.
There's LA.
There's this tropical water area with the nice beaches and whatnot. Like, they've got different biomes, different climates.
Yeah, which makes sense, as it should be.
Yeah. I imagine most planets should, really.
Mm-hmm. We're so used to looking out at the stars from Earth and being like, yeah, Neptune. The all blue one.
Yes, I did get a trailer for the Mandalorian and Grogu movie today, so
Oh, you did?
I did. So
wow,
yeah,
I haven't even seen that.
I got that, and I got a teaser trailer for Avengers, which
I got that.
Yeah, but there's 4 different ones. Which one did you get?
I got Chris Evans will return.
Well, Steve Rogers, but yeah. That's one I got.
I think it said Chris Evans. Maybe I was wrong. But
no, it definitely said Steve Rogers.
All right, fair enough.
But it felt a little desperate. It was like Steve Rogers will return in Avengers. I'm like, oh, you're so desperate for that success because it's been a bit of a rough 5 years.
I've been feeling that ever since Robert Downey Jr. got on stage and took off the Doctor Doom mask. I'm like, guys, don't pull that cord. You can't unpull that cord.
It's just so funny to me. The teaser literally just builds up to he's coming back, and not just like vaguely at some point, no, in this movie, and it ended with a countdown. It started off with like a year countdown. It'd be like 12, it was like 12 months, and the second started ticking down, and I'm like, all right, okay.
All that happened for me personally was the black text pop up saying "Will return" in Avengers Doomsday, and I said, "Till he's 90."
Because they'll just keep paying him more and more and more money. I mean, maybe it'll be good. I don't know, but maybe like clearly they're...
Are you going to check it out? Like, you've been checked out of Marvel movies for so long. Are you even going to see it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe when the next, because they're doing 2, right? Sort of like close together. Maybe for the 5th, well, that'll be the 6th Avengers because there was 4 already. Maybe for the 6th one, maybe we'll do an Avengers season and go through the Avengers movies.
Oh God, that's quite the commitment, but okay.
For collector's cut, I don't know.
All right.
But anyway, so yeah. I mean, I think the final showdown with Quaritch is mostly entertaining, especially when Spider gets involved trying to help. And because he goes off the side of the floating rock and Quaritch dives to save him, again, Jake and Quaritch have to kind of work together to save Spider because he has to pull them both up. And afterwards, and that's got a good laugh actually, where they're just sitting there after they've pulled him up, after they've been fighting to the death, and he's like, well, this is awkward. And I'm like, okay, that's funny. Yeah, you're right. It's awkward.
Yeah. And over on the boat, Kiri ends up coming in and doing that same overpowering via the hair danglies.
Oh, to
Varang.
Yeah, she basically gets a taste of her own medicine, yeah. In fact, she basically gets a stay away from her, you bitch moment. She
exactly.
Jumps. But what doesn't make it cringeworthy, though, is she doesn't say that line. She just says, get the hell away from my mother, which is what she should say in context, because that's what she's, in the moment for. But it definitely felt like a get away from her, you bitch, which obviously is Sigourney Weaver, so...
Yep. But it's important to note, pretty much the entirety of the Ash people that we saw are dead, except for her. She just runs away.
Varang will return. And
Avatar Doomsday.
I was going to say Avengers 4. Avatar 4. So the rest of the family show up on the floating rock, and Quaritch is like, well... this is a son of a bitch, and he just chooses to dive off, and they all react like he might have just leapt to his death, but he is not dead, not in a million years. We did not see. I was like, he's just diving into the water. It's fine.
It's a good 20-second fall, and we see all these cycles of fire and stuff coming up, and the entire time he's falling, I'm like, if I don't see a body, if I don't see a body, it's not happening.
He is not dead, not by a long shot.
Speaking of not seeing a body, we did get the payoff. In the middle of all this, the whales did attack the whalers. They overrun their ships. And the one whaler guy who got his arm bit off is bitten by the outcast one.
No, bit off. Pinned with a rope, and then that rope was yanked very hard.
I forgot that's how it happened, yeah. Well, what happened to him this time is they're like, okay, one of the whales takes him in his mouth, doesn't bite down, but holds on to him and just drags him down to the bottom of the ocean. And I'm like, yeah, he ain't surviving that. There's no way he's getting out of that one. Even if we don't see the body, there's no way he's coming out of it.
Quaritch is going to be here till the end of the series. This guy was clearly just for one movie. It just so happens that one movie got split into 2 movies, and that's why he was in 2 movies. That's the only reason why he made it out of 2 in any form.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that magnetic field we were talking about. That's where the final fight takes place, but it's also a thing where the main ships that the sky people are using gets caught up in it, and huge explosion. I think the female general character who's been our antagonist also dies in that explosion.
Yeah, and that basically means that there's like fire plumes and like spirals going up through the vortex the entire time they're having their big final fight on the rock. So that just sort of sets up the background for that to make it feel kind of apocalyptic and whatnot, and tie into the whole fire and ash thing. Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been nice if the third act was maybe more near the volcano to tie in with the ash people and the fire and ash title. I think that would have. I think that location change would have done a lot for the final fight to feel a bit different. I think.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it would require an entire reshuffling. It would require the fact that the calf communion is the big thing they're trying to stop. There's no way to put that far inland enough to be at the volcano.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to justify why our heroes would go to their home turf to attack them without it being, like, oh, we've all just turned into like vengeful assholes, apparently.
Yeah. The only thing I mean, now that it's set up, theoretically, you could do something down the line of like Quaritch and Varang have gone so far off the reservation that they are a threat to humanity as well, and the humans and the Na'vi have to team up to fight against the Ash people.
It wouldn't surprise me if that's where we're going for, to be honest.
Yeah, possible.
They become this power couple of doom who are like going to take over everything, and like all of a sudden like Jake has to actually almost become a bit of an ambassador to like communicate with the humans and whatnot. Because it was interesting watching, because obviously normally we're just hearing English, but they're actually talking in Na'vi language. But there's a couple of key moments where, because they're around other humans, they will subtitle it and have a language being spoken. So it is kind of fun when they do those little moments where they kind of show that they're speaking differently. But it's fun. I think we're really used to that idea because we read comic books, and all they do in comic books is they just sort of put a little italic thing and just say translated from Russian or whatever it is. But it's just in English because we're reading anyway. So
yeah, whatever. I mean, it makes sense. Speaking of the language thing, one thing I liked for the whale things, the whales obviously speaking like clicks and whistles and stuff like that. Visually, when they're doing the appeal of like, you guys got to stop being pacifists, you got to join the war, they show like one of the biggest whales is chirping and whatever, and you see like the vibration patterns in the water. It's a tiny little touch, but it adds so much to the scale and like the volume of the characters.
It sold the sort of the bass of the sound as it was sort of rippling through the water. Yeah, that was good stuff. Yeah, there's lots of great little details like that throughout, and even that big whale, one of the elder whales, had like these big sort of like piercings almost. It had like a big sort of banner coming down from its nose.
I have to assume that the Na'vi help put those on.
You would assume.
I can't imagine that the whales themselves are able to do that.
You would assume so, I think. The movie ends similar fashion, and this adds into the whole Act 3 feeling similar to Way of Water, which is, they're connecting to the tree underwater, which, lets them sort of speak to their loved ones that have passed away. And Kiri goes back in and sees her mum, so we see Sigourney Weaver. Notably, Spider goes in, of course, that's the big thing, and Spider makes his own little walk in there, and he meets Sigourney Weaver, and Sigourney Weaver's like, oh, so you're dating my daughter, are you? Kind of like a look on her face.
Oh yeah, we skipped over that. They shared a little kiss just somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah, she kisses him, and he's just kind of like awestruck, and then she's like, come on, monkey boy, and I'm like, all of a sudden monkey boy sounds like a dirty phrase, the way you keep saying it.
This is the equivalent of Twilight, of calling Bella Spider Monkey. It's like, I don't like the way you said that.
He's into it though. He's all about it. But they use this as an excuse to show every character in this franchise who's died already, because we get the guy from the first movie who died, the Na'vi. We get Kate Winslet and her dead son from this movie are in there. So we get like a whole entourage of the characters who have passed away.
The elder son from the last movie who died.
Of course, yeah. He makes sense. He's happy to see Spider, and the movie basically ends there. It doesn't. This is the first one that doesn't end with Sully's eyes opening up. That's true. That's how they ended the last two.
Yeah, the big ending is we zoom out of like the reef and we show the interconnectedness across the entirety of the planet. How all of them are connected in this web of life.
Yeah, there's like light sort of coming from the surface all over the planet, and so yeah, we see how it's sort of all over the place. Yeah, I mean, it's honestly a little bit of a bummer to be like saying, hey, yeah, the third act's kind of the weakest part because it feels a bit too samey to the last one. even though it's clearly very expensive, it's clearly full of good bits, and there's little character moments in there that I do really like in that third act, that change things up. But for me, all of the great stuff is the introducing of Varang, her interactions with Quaritch, and they're kind of forming a pair. All the stuff with the, like, should we kill Spider or not, and like those character journeys of making those decisions about who we are and like how we want to fight. Like, that stuff is, I think, like, arguably some of the best character work the entire franchise has had, because we've spent time setting these characters up over these movies now, but there's this history, so there's more weight behind it. And then the action in those first 2/3 is great. I think everything in the city, when the Tyrese coming to rescue Jake and all the stuff that's going on there, I really like. I like all the stuff with the airships and that big action set piece. Again, it's just, you know, the third act feels a little too similar to the last movie to feel like it's anything special, even though clearly it's very high quality in just about every way you could possibly measure it.
Yeah, no, if I had not seen the third act of the previous movie, I would think that this is absolutely a standout. Like, it's got all of its ducks in a row. It has a good sense of geography. You know where all the pieces are. You know who all the players are. It does a great job just with everything about it. It's only by comparison where you get to see these things of like, well, I mean, we kind of did that already.
And I think arguably it was better than the last one. And maybe part of that is just because it was first, and so it felt more special and more unique at the time. But I think also it's more complex next time because there's a lot more characters. So I think they focus on like just the family of characters last time, and like, oh, it's about saving the kids and the situation they're in, and then, you know, the father-son, mother-daughter bonds kind of being reforged as they're having to save their parents, and it felt like a passing of the torch. And maybe that's also part of, like, maybe the one little thing at the start of this movie that felt a little bit off to me is that it did kind of feel like they were in a bit more of an agitated state versus where I felt they left off in the end of the last movie. It felt at the end of the last movie they maybe had grown a bit closer, and like not necessarily we're over the death of the son, but certainly it didn't feel like Jake was like, oh, this is your fault, you got my son killed. to, you know, but, you know, like, other than that, I think all of the character stuff is where I think this one's excelling in the first 2/3, and it has all the spectacle you want. I will say that, and this was kind of true of the last one, but this one I feel like is even more so, because I feel like it's leaning on more new stuff, is that I think whenever they're using James Horner's music from the original, I'm like, yeah, that's good music, and it works really well, and it feels like Avatar music. Most of the new stuff, though, just kind of feels a bit generic, and I don't really take much notice of it, which is a real shame. And obviously, James Horner passed away. They can't really do anything about not having him back, but it just kind of feels like, yeah, the new guy's not up to the same standard, and it just feels a bit more forgettable, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't notice the music as much. So I remember noticing it in the original Avatar movie. So obviously you're correct in that it was a recognizable score, but with all the visual flourish going on, with all the big stuff going on there, I did see this one in 3D. I did end up having to go to a 3D showing. I wouldn't have preferred it, but it did make certain scenes pop just a little bit more. I was not paying attention to the sound mix and the musical score nearly as much as I probably should have been.
I mean, because I liked the music a lot in the first one, and in the second one, they use a lot of it, so it's good a lot of the time, but the new stuff is notably worse. Here, though, it felt like it was like 80 to 90% new stuff, so I like a lot of big moments felt like, I could have done with that theme there, or this theme here from previous, but hey, it is what it is. You know, so we'll see. I did not see it in 3D for the record. I saw this in 2D. Which is notable because actually I think Way of Water I did say screw it and saw it in 3D because you know, like Avatar 1 in 3D was kind of an event, and it was kind of like why everything was trying to be 3D for a while afterwards,
right? And
I thought, yeah, I'll see it in 3D for Jim, why not? Right? And it was fine. Like, I didn't like regret seeing it in 3D, but I don't like, when I was planning to see this one, I kind of just felt like, I don't think I really care enough about the 3D itself. I think I'd rather just see it normally, and I did, and that's how I watched it. So
yeah, no, I the way my theaters near me had it, there were like 2 or 3 2D showtimes and then like 7 or 8 3D showtimes, and it just happened to be the time I needed to go at was a 3D showtime. So
I get it.
I took it. It wasn't a bad experience. It wasn't like it was detracting from the movie because it felt like the movie was built with it in mind. But it was something where just a personal preference, I would have rather 2D as to just less distracting, more being able to take in the movie on its own terms.
Yeah, I think the problem with 3D for me, assuming the 3D is even good, which obviously it is with these movies because they're designed for it, is that one, everything just looks dimmer, right? And movie projectors are already naturally pretty dim, so that's actually kind of a big deal. And honestly, after about 20 minutes, I stopped noticing it's in 3D. Like I stopped even being aware of it, and it doesn't matter anymore. And I'm like, I'm making this less enjoyable for something that I'm not even noticing after 20 minutes.
I agree with you, except for the points where it fails. Like every once in a while, there'll be like something that's like really close to the foreground in the 3D that then goes off camera or like keeps dipping in and out of off camera. And it's really visible whenever it's like flickering like that, where you're like, what's happening? The illusion's being broken.
Yeah. Well, the problem is as well is that 3D is still just like, it doesn't really feel like three-dimensional. It just feels like there's layers to it as opposed to actually having depth, which I think is a bit different. And so it still feels like a gimmick to me, even just in that sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know? I mean, there were plenty of times where, like, when it was getting really busy on screen, I was actually just, like, covering up one of my eyes. Like, I was just like, let me just see this as it's supposed to be here. I don't want to get too much going on.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, back when it was a problem where theaters were, like, not putting enough 2D showings, some people were, like, making covers for one of the lenses so they could just watch it in 2D.
There were so many demonstrations of like, look, we all have 15 pairs of 3D glasses at home now. Everyone's keeping a pair or two. If you cut out the lens from one and put it into the lens of the other, you can have two that are getting the same eye, and it fixes it. It turns your 3D into a 2D showing.
It'll still be dimmer, but I mean, I just have to deal with that, I suppose.
Small fixes. Yep.
Yeah, but anyway, because it was notable that I saw Avatar Way of Water in 3D because I hadn't seen something in 3D in like a decade at that point. Because
I barely made anything in like 5 years after that point.
Because I remember in 2010 like seeing a couple more things in 3D and then quickly realizing, oh, I don't like seeing things in 3D. I never want to do this again. And there was only a couple of movies that forced me to see something in 3D. It was Piranha 3D because it was all built around 3D. And I think I might have had to see Dread in 3D because it was the only option and I wanted to see that movie at the time.
Okay.
But other than that, I very quickly stopped ever going to 3D showings.
Yeah, I definitely saw at least half a dozen movies in 3D, but I couldn't even tell you what they are now. They did not resonate on the same level as like Avatar did. And like, yes, this was an experience.
Yeah. So I'm glad that died out. Although, interestingly, because the theater's all like upgraded for it, they still have the ability to show them. So hey, you still get to go see stuff like this when the occasion arises if you want to.
I love how casual it is now too. Like I went up to get my tickets and all that. Like I scanned in my little barcode, and it's just like a little tray of 3D glasses right next to it. It's like, there you go, pick one up, have fun. Whereas before I felt like it was the whole thing where like, oh yeah, get ready for your 3D experience. Here you go.
Here you have to buy the glasses, but you do keep them, so you can just keep bringing them back. You know.
I mean, we get them for free. It's built into ticket prices, and then nobody drops them off in the bin afterwards. We all just put them in our pockets and walk out.
But you're supposed to give them back, I assume.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, I think we're at the end here pretty much. I mean, there's definitely some stuff we haven't talked about, stuff to go into, like Edie Falco threatening to call Ribisi's dad and tell him about your son's messing up all my orders, and he's like,
oh, what, you mean the chairman? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a nepo baby, bitch. Like, he's got that attitude. But I think it's time to rate the movie. So David, what you give an Avatar Fire and Ash out of 10?
Oh boy. I'm definitely above an 8. I know that much for sure. I'm just wondering how far I take it.
That's saying, even before you give your final score, that is saying something given the fairly major complaint of the third act feeling too similar to the last movie. Still being above an 8 is quite meaningful. Absolutely.
But that is the thing that's holding me back, though, at the same time. Like, that is the thing that's, because, previous Way of Water, I get out of 9, no problem. But this one, I don't know if I'm going to get up that high. I don't know if it's going to go to a 9. So I think think I'm going to keep this one at an 8.5. It's close to the 9, but I don't feel like if Way of Water is a 9 for me, I don't feel like this is quite on that same level that I wanted there. It's very close, but it's just not quite squeaking up to the same highs.
Yeah. I agree. It's less than Way of Water. I think Way of Water I gave a 9 or maybe a 9.5. It was something in that kind of range. I think this is a bit of a step down because of those third act problems we talked about. I think it's interesting compared to the first one, because I think the first one is maybe a tighter script overall, but obviously it's a much more simplistic story that's you know, like this in a lot of ways is a more emotionally impactful because it's built up more complex characters by now, and there's a lot more like we care about the payoffs to a lot of this stuff going on. Natiri's so much more complex than she was in the first movie, so there's things here to like this more than the first one, but arguably the first one's better structured and so on. So yeah. It's complex, and I'm kind of fighting between an 8 and an 8.5. I think ultimately for me, which, you know, which means, you know, I think this franchise has been very high quality because I've not went below an 8 for anything.
Oh yeah.
So things are good in that front. So I think my gut is just to give it a flat 8. Maybe that'll change a little bit over time with repeat viewings when, you know, I go in knowing where it's going to go, and, you know, maybe, you know, if we do get 4 and 5, like once you watch them as a series is one big thing, kind of like, how does that make you feel about each chapter individually, kind of thing?
You dedicate 2 straight days to watching 5 movies. I
think it's more of a one a day kind of thing, to be honest, when you're going to rewatch these, given how long they bloody are. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that's where I'm landing for now.
Okay.
It could inch up a little bit, but yeah, it's definitely lower than Way of Water because of those third act things. But there's a lot of stuff in here that I do love, and there's still a lot to love about this. That said, though, if you didn't like the previous 2 Avatar movies, if you hated them, you're going to hate this one too. There is nothing that's going to flip you around here.
Like we were saying, this is basically Way of Water Part 2. Like, if you didn't like it, then yeah, you're still not going to like it.
Yeah, so, you know, everyone who wants to make fun of Avatar and shit all over it and rip it apart, they're going to continue to do so. There's no real way to fight that, and that's okay. But yeah, but hey, that's Avatar Avatar Fire and Ash.
The Way of Fire. Interesting.
To be more precise. Yes. So I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, what is coming next week on the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Which I don't actually have that open. David, what's coming next week on the show?
Well, next week we already recorded, because obviously that's the new releases are a bit higher priority, but next week we have Tarantula coming out.
That's fine. They didn't need to know that we already recorded that.
Well, we don't mention Avatar pretty much anywhere in the review. So,
so yes, Tarantula, we're doing a 60s movie next week. We're also going to be doing an end of year special. So the forum does have entries for all of the shows, and the Streams After Midnight special will already be recorded by the time this goes out. But if you still want to fill it in, just for Ace and Collector's Cut, you can, and just vote for your favourite episodes of the show for the year. Because we'll be doing an end-of-year special soon where we announce those results, and we'll spend time picking categories of the different movies we've covered on the show in 2025. Hopefully that sounds like fun. That'll be an extra thing somewhere in the next few weeks. We haven't quite nailed down when that'll be yet, but that'll be coming up soon, towards the end of the month, maybe start of January. But I'm hoping by the end of December. So so I'll try and make sure there's a link to that in the description. And if you don't see it down there, it will be on Discord if you've not joined up there. It will be on the Patreon page if you've not looked there. You'll have to be a patron to see it, though. But speaking of Patreon, if you want to be a patron and support everything, including the Atomic Cinema Experiment, and get some bonus ratings rundown segments and our monthly extra reel show where we review some of the worst movies of all time, you can do that and help support the show over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, or via YouTube membership if that is easier or more your thing. Yeah. And this is the point where usually I say David's got a homework movie, but he's slacking this week. He's been lazy.
Yeah, you want to pull this? It is the weekend before Christmas. I have been sick as hell in the entire period here. But if you really want something, if you absolutely want something, Pete, 5 hours before I had to go and watch Avatar, I was dragged to go see Wicked 2. Would you like to know my thoughts on Wicked 2?
Nope, that's the end of the show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer Ad Salsa.